Let's move on now, because a farm in St Osyth that caters for visitors with disabilities and mental health challenges is in desperate need of funds.
Yes, the owner says they have only about a month left of money and they will have to shut if they don't receive any more funding.
Well, we're joined now by our GB News reporter Jack Carson, who's also being joined by a special guest.
Yeah, good morning to you both. Well, we're here once again at Sandy's farm. We've been here this morning. Our fantastic viewers have raised more than £6,000 for this farm. As you were saying, they're in desperate need of some funding in order to be able to keep the fantastic work in the community that it does. We are surrounded by beautiful animals. You can see these horses here. We've got a little Shetland having a bit of breakfast this morning. And as you were mentioning as well, Charlie, we're joined by Nigel Farage, of course, MP for this area. Nigel, thank you for joining us this morning. This is such a fantastic place for this community here in your constituency, isn't it?
Well, it is. Good morning. And we can hear some fairly active chickens behind me as we speak. Yeah, I mean, it's a beautiful sunny day. That helps. But no, it's a lovely spot. And the thing is, particularly for kids, too many of whom seem to be obsessed by electronic devices and maybe not going outside very much, and almost a sort of a break in a link of understanding the animal kingdom, how it all works. So you've got everything here. I've just seen a one-day-old guinea pig to horses they've got here that have been, abused animals that they brought in and given a good home to. There's some pigs here that escaped from a massive fire. So but it's some very good work. And yeah, all the Clacton schools come through here. Of particular importance, I think, are the special educational needs, and there's quite a bit of that in this area. And for kids like that, you don't get the opportunity to go out and do fun things, for them to come and touch the animals and play with the animals a bit and learn about things. So I very much want to see it continue. But obviously, you can't run these things for free. The guys that run it don't even take a salary out of it. They do it for the love of what they do. So yes, I'm very much behind this campaign to raise the money to keep this going, and I want to see it here year after year to come.
And you were mentioning there the impact that it can have with people with disabilities or special educational needs. It's amazing what animals can do and the skills that they can learn from that. Is that, do you think, missing from education generally, that kids aren't growing up learning the kind of skills of learning with animals and learning about that? You'll be able to be here, touch them, you'll be around these different kinds of animals that we've got at the farm here.
Yeah, I also think sort of the kind of rural life and farm life is so far away from like 95% plus of young children who grow up in towns, who grow up in big cities, who just don't connect with the big outdoors, don't connect with the countryside. So I think just have a look around you. It's an absolutely beautiful spot, incredibly peaceful, amazing place to be. So yeah, I think this is very, very good for kids. And hey, that's not to say also there are adults. And they take these animals around to some of the old people's homes and things like that. But it's particularly for kids, and particularly for those special educational need kids. Coming to a place like this does them a lot of good.
Do you worry then, with the tariffs that have come in this morning, about the impact that they could have on farms? You're, of course, the MP for a very rural constituency. Do you worry about the impact that the tariffs will have on those farmers?
Yeah, I mean, we have 100 farms in this constituency. They're mostly small farms, mostly family farms. I don't worry so much for them about tariffs because most of their produce is going to be sold within the United Kingdom. It'll affect the bigger people more significantly. I worry obviously about inheritance tax and how many of these old traditional family, which are going on 5, 6, 7 generations, I worry very much about that. And I think one of the reasons that the English countryside, British countryside is as beautiful as it is, it's the way families have tended that land over many, many years. So I'm deeply concerned about that. I'm deeply concerned that big agribusinesses will buy the whole thing up. I worry that, in Grade 1 farmland in Lincolnshire, we're putting massive solar panels built by Chinese slave labour. I mean, I do worry about many of these things. I really, really do. I think more broadly on the tariffs, I've written a piece in today's Daily Telegraph where I actually think this is a very important moment. The fact that Trump gave us 10% tariffs, which by the way is not good, but the fact that he gave us 10%, not 20%, kind of shows you the world now views us differently, that we've left the European Union. We now have got to take that opportunity. Let's now do Brexit properly. Let's become more competitive than any other country in Europe, and we can do that by getting rid of so much EU regulation, something we failed to do completely under the last Conservative government. They said, oh, well, we were so busy with the pandemic. Well, whatever the reasons, everything from fishing to financial services, we can make things more streamlined, we can make things more competitive. We shouldn't even think about tariff retaliation. In fact, we should do the opposite. We should start lowering tariffs for food, for products from around the world. Let's become a truly competitive economy. So I actually think this could be a wake-up call that if we get it right, could really benefit us.
But what are the chances of that happening? We know that Starmer's going to meet leaders with Europe and across the world. Do you possibly about reciprocal tariffs? What impact would, if we were to put reciprocal tariffs on, that would go in the opposite way to what you were just talking about there?
Well, the European Union have made it very clear that they will reciprocate in some way. Canada will reciprocate in some way. China already has reciprocated. We should not do so. We should rise above this, become a much more competitive country. We'll be a lot richer as a result. Starmer's problem is, on the one hand, he's quite enjoying the Brexit freedoms of being the bridge between America and the other European NATO allies. He's clearly privately delighted that it's 10%, not 20%. I mean, that's fairly obvious. But he keeps talking about an EU reset. And if we reset ourselves closer back towards the European Union and back towards European Union laws, that'll make doing deals with America or many other parts of the world more difficult. So he is in a tricky spot. We know that Starmer was the great Remainer. We know that Starmer wanted a second referendum. But I just begin to wonder whether in number 10, a few of them aren't scratching their heads thinking, do you know what? There's actually a real opportunity here.
Nigel Farage, thank you so much for joining us this morning. You heard here, his thoughts on those tariffs coming in today, but also what this fantastic community farm here, just outside Clacton, Sandy's Farm, means to his constituency, to his community here that he represents. And of course, if you want to try and help fund and donate towards Sandy's Farm, you can go to GoFundMe.com and just search Sandy's Farm.
Brilliant. Thank you, Jack Carson, and such an important cause. Thank you so much. And Miriam, we heard Nigel there being challenged by Jack about his perspective on those tariffs, how they could affect farms in Britain. He sort of dodged the question, didn't he? Going straight to talking
about small family farms.
Yeah, talking about inheritance tax and talking also about solar panels. But the fact of the matter is, the UK food and drinks industry, they do send a couple of £1 billion a year over to the US, and it is specialist goods. Yeah. The Americans, they like the salmon, the smoked salmon, the whiskies, the cheeses we produce. Now, there are lots of big companies there, but it is also a lot of small family, long-standing organisations involved in that, and they will be affected.
Yes, and they're not markets that can be easily replaced. They're not just going to suddenly dump smoked salmon on the UK.
Yeah,
we don't buy that much, although we should probably buy more.
Well, on those 10% tariffs that took effect at 8 a.m, that had a big impact because stock markets plummeted and the odds of a global recession spiked from 40 to 60%.
But overnight, the president posted on Truth Social, his social media platform, saying big business is not worried about the tariffs because they know they're here to stay. And yesterday, America and China declared this trade war. But this morning, Sir Keir Starmer is reportedly in a bid to secure a deal for the UK with the US.
Well, joining us now is foreign policy analyst and columnist Lee Cohen. Lee, what chances do we have of getting that special deal with the US?
Well, good morning, Charlie and Miriam, and many thanks for having me on. Trump's tariff plan is a golden opportunity for post-Brexit Britain. It reinforces sovereignty, boosts competitiveness, enables an unprecedented and necessary strategic pivot, and it rejects EU dependence. Far from a threat, it's a catalyst for Britain to realize the UK's full potential economically, politically, and globally. And as you mentioned just now, certainly the markets will experience volatility in the upcoming days, weeks, and months. However, the critics who claim that Trump is mistaken have a track record of being incorrect on almost every significant geopolitical and economic issue for a decade. A lot has been made of the censorship issue, if that's an impediment. Censorship in the UK isn't just a domestic issue. It's a real roadblock to securing a better trade deal with the United States, which is certainly advisable, especially on tariffs. Look, Trump's tariff strategy is about leverage and bringing countries to the table to negotiate fairer terms for workers and businesses here. And that makes sense because because, of course, as everyone knows, he's famously America first. Why wouldn't he? The UK facing a 10% tariff, which isn't insignificant, but still, it has a golden opportunity to strike a deal that could ease or even eliminate that burden.
But Lee, President Trump's primary aim in issuing these tariffs is not really a diplomatic one. It is one to try and restore American industry, to try and reshore the kind of manufacturing jobs that have been lost, particularly amongst the white working classes over previous decades, the voters that are his base. So if he's successful, if he does manage to reshore some of these manufacturing businesses, how does that then affect the UK and other countries who then, obviously, well, particularly China, would lose a massive market?
Well, Miriam, it's a good question. Reactions from my British friends have been supportive and positive. Frustrated with the Starmer government's disastrous economic policies, heavy taxation, and neglect of citizens, they admire Trump's nation-first stance, seeing it as actually as a model for the UK to follow under future post-Starmer leadership. Unsurprising that many of these voices trust Trump more than the current UK or EU leaders, hoping his actions will inspire a new world order, which goes way beyond simply industrial or trade relations, a new world order that values national interests over globalist agendas.
And Lee, OK, let's be frank. This is not going to change British free speech legislation. The Starmer government have made it very clear that they don't believe there's a problem with censorship in Britain. This State Department approach of saying that if you change your speech laws, we might give you a better deal on tariffs, that's only going to make the issue of censorship bigger and more difficult to overcome in Britain, surely.
Well, Charlie, Labor's obsession with controlling speech online doesn't just clash with American values of free expression. It's a practical hurdle. And why? Because it signals to the Trump administration that the Starmer's UK isn't fully open for business in the digital age, where tech and data flows are king. If the UK wants to dodge these tariffs and lock in a sweetheart deal, they need to show flexibility, maybe roll back some of the nanny state oversight on the internet.
Well, Lee Cohen, thank you so much for your time.